In just 58 minutes, Ella completely smashes Coco Gauff, and the crowd goes crazy. No one anticipated it. Not the fans, not the analysts, not even Gauff. The energy was different from the first serve. Electric, colder, and sharper. Eala was more than just a tennis player. She had a message to convey. Each blast was like a razor slicing through the air. Fire responded to every return. Gauff's confidence gradually eroded as her rhythm broke. With each rally, the crowd rose. A shout replaced the disbelief. And silence gave way to commotion when the last ball crossed the finish line. The past had just been altered. Beneath that 58-minute masterpiece, however, is a tale of rivalry, pressure, and covert retaliation that nobody anticipated. Because supremacy isn't always about power. The goal is to disprove everyone. There was silence prior to the eruption. Just before the game started, there was an odd, unsettling silence throughout the arena. Silence that seems to be a warning. Everyone was familiar with Coco Gauff, the youthful prodigy who took the world by storm, a Grand Slam winner, and a representation of the sport's future. Alexandra Eala was standing on the other side of the net. Calm, collected, underappreciated by many and unknown to others. She did not make headlines. She wasn't the most popular. However, she was the unanticipated storm. I had been quietly constructing something for months. She spent late nights watching match tapes, endured long sessions in the sweltering sun, and overcame moments of doubt. Her home country is the Philippines, where tennis is a passion rather than a promise. Every setback feels personal, and every success feels like a revolt. Eala had been informed from the start that players from her region of the world don't succeed. Also too small a stage, too few resources, too far away. However, she didn't want to rise to the top and disprove them. She felt she belonged there, which is why she wanted it. She now stood opposite from the lady who represented everything she was told she couldn't be on this court, under the dazzling lights. Coco Gauff is a warrior on the court, the face of contemporary tennis, the audience favorite, and the sweetheart of endorsements. It was not meant to be a close game. One-sided betting lines were used. A simple victory was predicted by commentators. However, there was something in her eyes when I moved to the baseline for her warm-up. A quiet form of rage. She wasn't present to take part. She was there to assume control. Her coach murmured something that only she could hear in the corner of her team. A restless crowd muttered, "Forget who she is. Remember who you are." It wasn't just advice. It was ignition. They were waiting for Gauff's trademark intensity to illuminate the court. The cameras flashed. Reporters jotted down notes. But even Gauff appeared a little taken aback as Eala's first serve, which was quick, clean, and perfectly on the edge, cracked like thunder. Nobody was ready to believe the story that was revealed in that first game. Eala was not responding to the beat of Gauff. It was dictated by her. Every movement was planned, every rally was measured, and the tension started to change in a matter of minutes. The audience, accustomed to applauding Gauff's supremacy, began to sense something strange. Uncertainty. Experienced admirers recognized the expression in Eala's eyes. Not nerves, not haughtiness, just such unadulterated concentration that it appeared nearly icy. The narrative of every instance in which she had been disregarded, and every competition she had participated in under a false identity was contained within that concentration. It was more than just a match. It was a proclamation. The audience still had hope for a comeback when the first set got underway. With Gauff, they always did. Her legend was her tenacity. However, there was a murmur in the air that got louder with each point. This girl, who is she? Eala's shots had become declarations by the time she broke serve for the first time. There were gasps with each victory. Every rally concluded with incredulity. She was not grinning. She wasn't having a party. She was methodical, laser-focused, and locked in. The fiery and ferocious Coco Gauff appeared human all of a sudden. Additionally, the balance of women's tennis seemed to be shifting throughout that first 30 minutes. The quiet before the storm started to break. The eruption was on its way. There was just one rally at first. 41 defiant shots. Momentum is defined by this type of rally. The type that changes everything you believe to be true. Coco Gauff had just lost her serve. In an attempt to slow down the fading rhythm, she stood at the baseline and spun her racket. Alexandra Eala's gaze followed her over the internet. There was only that unwavering fire, no emotion, no smile. The first serve was delivered forcefully. Gauff's signature strength, a blur in the distance. Deep to the backhand, Eala caught it perfectly. The cross-court line, forehand, backhand and back and forth came next. Neither was retreating. After every exchange, the audience gasped, as the tempo increased with each shot. Then it took place. Eala intervened, saw the angle, and smashed a forehand down the line with such force that it painted the baseline's edge. The tension was broken by the umpire's call. "Allah is the game." Gauff froze. Something shattered in the air as the crowd erupted. Not only did that point win a game, everything was altered by it. Coco appeared uncertain for the first time during the contest. Her gaze darted to her box in search of comfort. Her instructor gave a slow applaud, but it was clear from his demeanor. This was not intended to occur. Her face was unreadable as I carefully made my way to her chair and took a sip of water. Commentators attempted to explain it. One said, "Maybe Gauff's adjusting." Another whispered, "Eala is playing out of her mind." However, they were unaware that this was strategy rather than a lucky streak. Eala didn't always go for winners. Instead, she waited, forcing mistakes and tightening the angles until Gauff had little room to breathe. She had studied Gauff and knew where the pressure points were. When Eala's winners struck clean, the mostly Gauff-supporting crowd started to get restless, with murmurs, gasps, and even nervous applause. At 4-1 in the first set, a brief exchange completely changed the mood when Gauff yelled in frustration after missing a routine backhand and smashed the ball against the net post. Eala turned away, adjusted her wristband, and moved to the baseline without responding to the umpire's warning, which caused the arena to go silent. The next few games went by like lightning. Eala's returns were brutal, precise, almost surgical. Her court movement felt effortless, and when she broke for 51, the crowd couldn't believe it. People started recording on their phones, capturing what felt like history unfolding in real time. One fan shouted near the front row. By the time the first set ended 61, the narrative had completely changed. Commentators were now using words like dominant, thunderous energy. Gauff's expressions fed into Eala's composure. She was aware that the match was not yet over, yet she never once smiled. Not until the very end. Gauff attempted to reset in the second set with deep breaths, a slower tempo, and a few strong serves, but momentum is a peculiar thing. Once it shifts, it doesn't come back easily, and in Eala's eyes, the spark had already turned into fire. By the fourth game, Gauff's frustration erupted once more, and she questioned a line call and Eala's forehand that kissed the edge. "Out!" Gauff shouted. The umpire overruled. The crowd booed, tension filling the air. Eala simply nodded and prepared to serve again. That point broke the illusion completely. This wasn't luck. This was domination. Pure, methodical, unstoppable. And when I held serve with an ace down the tee, the crowd rose again, half in disbelief, half in admiration. She was rewriting the story in real time. One game at a time, one statement at a time. Because in that moment, the young woman from Manila wasn't playing against Coco Gauff. She was playing against every doubt she'd ever been handed. And for the first time, it looked like she was winning. By the start of the second set, the atmosphere inside the arena had completely changed. What began as a Gauff-friendly crowd had turned into something else, something wild, unpredictable, electric. The sound of disbelief echoed after every point. You could almost hear the collective thought, "This can't be happening." Aya was up a set and already breaking serve again. Her confidence had turned into control, and her control was now something dangerous. It was quiet dominance. Every movement felt measured. Every rally finished precisely. She turned, fixed her cap, and walked back to the baseline without celebrating, yelling, or pumping her fist. It was her poise and quiet that caused the fans to erupt even more. After a rare victory at 2-0, Coco Gauff finally let out a roar. She waved her hands toward the stands, trying to feed off the noise, and the crowd responded with cheers, chants, and energy. For a brief moment, it seemed like the tide could turn, but Ella didn't blink. On the very next point, she fired a serve wide, pulled Gauff off the court, and finished with a clean forehand into the open space. The rally lasted 9 seconds, and the crowd gasped. At first, a section in the upper rows began to chant, "ANNIHILATION." At the stands, it became louder and realized she was no longer the only person in the crowd. That after each point lost, it slumps. Eala responded with something sharper, quicker, and crueler each time she attempted to rally. In the middle of the game, social media started to buzz. X and TikTok were inundated with videos of Eala's accurate forehands and Gauff's missed backhands. One tweet asked, "Who is this girl?" Another said, "Eala's playing like she's got a point to prove, and wow, she's proving it." By the halfway point of the second set, Eala's Gauff was trending. Throughout the broadcast, shocked commentators muttered, "This is one of the most dominant performances we've seen against Coco Gauff in years." The anxiety had spread beyond the court to the entire world. When Gauff double faulted at 4-1, the fans moaned and she flung back her head, clearly frustrated. Ella, as composed as ever, bounced the ball 3 times and served again, another ace. The stadium erupted, cameras panning across faces. Ella's team remained silent in the player box, hands folded, eyes fixed on her every move, knowing what was about to happen. Then came the final game, where Coco Gauff served to stay in the match. The crowd stood up, calling out her name and pleading for a miracle, but miracles don't happen on demand. Ella's return was brutal. Coco fought, deep, hefty, relentless. Error, match point, silence, middle of the box, Ella's forehand ripping across the court, a whirl of color and sound, the ball clipping the line, flawless, game set and match. The words reverberated, "Eala." Time appeared to freeze for a moment, and then there was an eruption, causing the stadium to roar. Eala stood motionless for a while, breathing heavily, staring at the scoreboard as fans leaped from their seats, phones in the air, voices bursting through the cacophony. Car 6 went 58 minutes. Coco Gauff approached the net and extended her hand, which Eala firmly accepted with no smirk, no haughtiness, just silent respect. However, that flicker in Gauff's face, the annoyance concealed under her sportsmanship, was captured on tape. Ella felt as though everyone had just witnessed a small earthquake, brief, abrupt, and impossible to ignore. As she left the court, the crowd chanted her name as if they were witnessing the birth of something historic. She looked back once, not just to see it happen live, and the echoes of the crowd filled the arena long after they vanished down the tunnel. With a towel covering her head, Coco Gauff sat by herself on the bench, taking in what had just transpired. For a player accustomed to